Jungkook asks for a hiatus, but is ignored. A will in a studio drawer shakes BTS. Did they realize it too late? Hyung, if I disappeared tonight, would anyone even look for me? The words whispered by Jungkook days ago rang through Taehyung's head like an echo trapped inside a cave. His hand trembled as he pulled open the old studio drawer, the one where Jungkook usually kept his protein bars and candy stash. But this time, there was no candy. Only a single white envelope folded too many times, creased with pain. Taehyung, what are you doing in his drawer? Namjoon asked, walking over. The moment he saw the envelope, he stopped. Everyone stopped. Taehyung held it up. No one said a word. The air felt thick. Time froze. Jin took a step forward. What is that? Taehyung opened it, his voice barely above a whisper, shaking as he read. To my Hyungs, if you're reading this, I might have finally found peace. I'm not a super magnate, I'm just a tired boy who wanted a hug. Not another performance. I'm sorry if I failed your expectations. But I'm too broken to keep trying to please the world. It wasn't a letter. It was a goodbye. The studio erupted into chaos, but not the loud kind. The kind that screamed in silence. Jimin collapsed to the floor, gripping his chest like the words had pierced him. Jin stood frozen, color draining from his face. Hoseok kept pressing call after call on Jungkook's number, hands shaking. Namjoon? Namjoon lost it. He picked up the nearest chair and hurled it into the wall. He asked for a break. He shouted, breath ragged. And he didn't finish the sentence. The signs had always been there. Jungkook had been living in the studio lately, sleeping on the couch with his hoodie on, cold coffee cups piling up beside him. He was always the last to leave, the first to arrive. And somehow, he still smiled in every live, in every fan sign, in every camera flash. But none of them saw the bloodshot eyes behind those smiles that he had tried, again and again. Hyung, I think I need a little time off. Taein Setiket Lagi. We're all tired, Namjoon had replied. You're strong, Jungkook. Don't be soft now, Jin had said, laughing. Wait until the world tour is over, Hoseok had insisted. You're enough, but the fans need you, Jimin had told him. Each word, meant to motivate, ended up muffling his voice more and more, until finally he stopped talking. That night, they were called into the studio for a last-minute rehearsal arranged by management. Jungkook wasn't there. Maybe he overslept, Jin offered. He never oversleeps, Jimin said, his voice already cracking. The manager said his phone was off. No one had seen him leave the dorm. The group chat only had one message from him that evening. A single black heart emoji that IT felt ominous now. Too ominous. Namjoon began pacing. Where the hell is he? He never misses rehearsals. Taehyung, almost like in a trance, walked over to the drawer and pulled it open. The letter was waiting. And now they stood, each one a piece of a broken mosaic, unsure how to put themselves back together. Jimin reread the letter, tears smudging the ink. I'm just a tired boy who wanted a hug. Had they ever given him one without asking for something in return? Hours passed. They split up, called hospitals, checked dorms. Nothing. Then, at 2:37 a.m., the door creaked open. He stood there. His hoodie was pulled low over his head, hands in his pockets. His eyes were puffy, not from sleep. They turned slowly. One by one, Jungkook looked at them. He looked at the letter in Jimin's hand. He saw the tears, the wreckage, the regret. Then he spoke, soft but clear. I didn't go anywhere. I just wanted to see if anyone would notice if I did. Silence. Namjoon stepped forward. Jungkook stepped back. Not now, Hyung. I'm not ready to be forgiven. And he walked to the corner of the studio, the one where he usually warmed up his voice, and sat down alone. I'm taking a break tomorrow, he said quietly, and one argued. Not because you tell me to, because I need to. The studio lights flickered as the sun began to rise. And in the corner of the room, a boy who had always carried the world on his back finally let it down. The silence after Jungkook's words lingered like the smell of stale coffee and sweat in the studio. A reminder of all the nights he spent alone, waiting for someone to ask, "Are you okay?" and meaning it. And no one said a word. Not right away. Hoseok's phone was still in his hand, the screen dim now. 30 unanswered calls. He hadn't stopped trying, even when his voice broke, even when the dial tone felt like a punch to the gut. But now that Jungkook was here, tangible, breathing, and breaking before their eyes, he didn't know what to say. Jin sat down slowly, like his knees couldn't carry the weight of his own guilt. He kept staring at Jungkook, like if he looked away, the younger boy might vanish. Jungkook, still in the corner, picked at the fraying thread on his sleeve. His head was tilted slightly down, but he wasn't crying. Not anymore. It was the calm after a storm. The kind that didn't promise peace, only more wreckage. Earlier that day, flashback, Jungkook had stood in the elevator, eyes fixed on the glowing numbers as they counted down. He'd clutched the letter in his pocket all day, fingers rubbing the edges until it felt like ash. No one had checked on him. Not a single message after his black heart. He wondered what would happen if he disappeared for real. Would it be in the news? Would the company release a polished statement? Would his Hyung's cry on stage? Would the fans forgive him or hate him for breaking their illusion? He pressed his forehead against the elevator wall and whispered to himself, just disappear for a while. Just long enough for them to feel it. Present, why didn't you say something? Jimin's voice cracked the silence. Jungkook looked up at him, eyes heavy. I did. Jimin's breath caught. His knees buckled again, and this time he didn't even try to stop the fall. I thought I was helping. I thought I was pushing you like we always do. You were. Jungkook nodded. But sometimes, pushing someone who's already at the edge means they fall. Namjoon leaned against the wall, his fists clenched. I'm the leader, he whispered. I should have seen it. I did see it, but you thought I was strong enough to keep going. Jungkook finished for him. I did too. Taeyoon walked over to Jungkook's corner and sat beside him, close but not touching. What do you want us to do now? There was a long pause. Jungkook swallowed. Listen. Just listen. 1 week earlier, rehearsal room the day had been long. Too long. Jungkook had arrived at the studio first, as always. He hadn't slept. Not really. He hadn't eaten. No one noticed. Or they noticed, but they were too tired to care. Namjoon had been hunched over a laptop, frustrated over a lyric that wouldn't land. Jin had been video calling his parents. Hoseok was running through a dance break, obsessing over a half-second error. Jimin was reading comments from a fan thread. Some were sweet, some cruel. And Jungkook sat on the floor with his headphones on, replaying a voicemail he'd never sent. Hyung, I think I'm not okay. He deleted it before hitting send. Back to present, Taeyoon broke the stillness with a whisper. Are you staying with us tonight? Jungkook didn't answer immediately. He looked up at the ceiling. The acoustic panels, the old stains, the stickers they'd stuck up years ago. Time had passed. Their bond had weathered everything, from scandals to sickness to burnout. But this was different. I don't know, Jungkook said. Part of me just wants to disappear. Not forever, just long enough to feel real again. Namjoon crossed the room and knelt down in front of him. No cameras, no stage, no fans, no pressure, he said. Just us. Jungkook's eyes welled again. He hated crying in front of them. He always had. Will you let me stop pretending? He asked. Yes, they all said, almost in unison. Later that night, they didn't go home. They stayed. Right there in the studio. Jungkook fell asleep first, curled up on the old couch with a blanket Taeyoon had kept in his locker. Jimin sat on the floor near him, knees hugged to his chest, eyes staring at nothing. Jin cooked instant ramen with the studio's kettle. Hoseok paced. Namjoon wrote in his notebook, and no one left. They didn't talk much. They didn't need to, because for the first time in a long time, they weren't BTS. They were just 7 boys again, and one of them almost didn't make it in on the coffee table in front of the couch. Namjoon quietly placed a fresh notebook with a sticky note on the front. For when you're ready to write again. Not for us, not for fans, for you. The city outside was waking up, but inside the studio, it felt like time had stopped. Morning light spilled through the high windows, soft and indifferent, casting long shadows across the floor. The 6 of them sat in silence, surrounding Jungkook like a fragile heartbeat that he was still asleep, wrapped in the warmth of quiet and exhaustion, his breath steady for the first time in what felt like months. His hoodie had slipped slightly, revealing the curve of his jaw, pale and tense even in rest. Namjoon watched him from across the room, pen idle in his fingers. He had written 2 pages in the notebook. None of it made sense. Sentences started and ended without rhythm, emotions bleeding through each line like ink on cheap paper. How many times did he ask without saying a word? How many times did we drown out his silence with our noise and call it love? A few hours earlier, Jungkook had fallen asleep mid-sentence. He was talking about his first showcase, the one where his voice cracked on the final note, and he cried alone in the bathroom, afraid the members would think he'd failed them. I kept hearing fans scream my name, he had said, but I just wanted to go home. He laughed then, a quiet, broken laugh that didn't reach his eyes. Now he was still, barely shifting under the thin blanket. The room held its breath around him. Elsewhere in the building, manager Hyun had arrived at the front doors around 7 a.m. with 2 assistants and a box of promotional materials. He didn't expect to find 6 grown men sleeping on the studio floor, 1 on a couch, 5 scattered around him like a makeshift barrier. When he tried to speak, Jin met his eyes and shook his head. Just once. That was enough. They didn't need anyone else's version of concern. Not now. Mid-morning, Jungkook stirred. He blinked against the sunlight and the rawness in his chest. The air smelled faintly of Jin's ramen and old soundproofing foam. His gaze landed on Jimin first, fast asleep, back against the wall, tear tracks still fresh on his cheeks. Then Taeyoung, curled on the floor with his arms crossed like he was guarding something precious. Then Namjoon, holding a notebook and watching him, not with pity, but with something gentler. Something harder to accept. Recognition. "You're awake," Namjoon said softly. Jungkook nodded. "Yeah." A pause. "We didn't leave," he added, more surprised than anything. Namjoon gave a small smile. "Neither did you." Later, at the dorm, they brought Jungkook home. An 01 forced conversation. I put on soft music. Jin made toast no one ate. Taeyoung opened the curtains just enough for the light to come in, but not enough to hurt the eyes. Jungkook wandered into his room and closed the door. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Jimin stood outside his door for a full 30 before he slid a note under it. "You don't have to talk, but I'll be here when you want to." Inside the room, Jungkook sat on the edge of his bed, reading it over and over. Jungkook's inner voice, he remembered everything too clearly. The day he stopped enjoying music. The night he deleted 3 finished songs because they didn't feel like him, just another mask. The way fans said he's glowing, even as he lost weight from stress and stopped eating right. The worst part wasn't that no one noticed it was that everyone noticed and still expected more. Because he was Jungkook, the golden, Magne, the standard, and 01 wants to hear the stars say he's tired of shining. Evening. First real conversation, he came out of his room after sunset. Not because he was ready, but because something inside him whispered, "You'll drown if you stay in silence forever." Jin was at the kitchen table, reading. The rest were scattered through the dorm. "Hyung," Jungkook said. Jin looked up instantly. "Yeah. Do you think I'm weak?" Jin stood, walked over. He didn't rush, didn't overreact. Just looked at him, eyes serious. "I think you're the strongest person I know," he said, "because you didn't pretend you weren't breaking." Jungkook's lips trembled. "But I did pretend." "Then you stopped." Jungkook's journal. That night, April 10th, 3:27 a.m. night, I almost left, they cried. And I wanted to scream, where were those tears when I was begging with my silence? But today, they stayed. They didn't apologize with words. They made space. Maybe I'm not okay yet, but I'm not invisible anymore. That has to count for something. The days that followed were quiet, but not the kind of quiet that comes with peace. It was the kind that echoes, that reminds you just how loud it used to be when you were pretending everything was fine. Jungkook didn't return to the studio. Not right away. Not after the letter. Not after seeing his Hyung's break in front of him. Instead, he stayed in his room. He wrote, drew, slept when he could, ignored his phone that he wasn't trying to punish anyone. He just didn't know how to go back. Because if he stepped into that room again, who would he be? The idol? The friend? The broken version they were finally seeing for the first time? One morning, Jimin knocked 3 times. Not with urgency, with rhythm, with memory. Jungkook opened the door. "I'm not here to fix anything," Jimin said. "I'm just here to be here." So they sat on the floor, backs to the wall, knees almost touching. Jimin whispered, I reread the letter. Jungkook flinched. You didn't fail anyone, Jimin added. We failed you. Silence. Then Jungkook replied, voice cracked and honest. I was waiting for one of you to ask me to stay. Not as an artist, as your brother. Jimin looked down. We thought you were staying, because you kept showing up. You never let us see how far you were slipping. I didn't want to be a burden. You weren't. You never were. The break, a hard conversation with accompanying Namjoon, stepped in as the group's leader. And this time, not as a mediator, but as a shield. We're pulling him from schedules. No promotions. No public statement unless it's honest. He's not a brand right now. He's a person. The company resisted, but RM's voice didn't waver. He nearly broke in front of us. We don't need stats. We need him alive. And that was the end of it. Jungkook got the break he should have been given months ago. Healing, but not the romantic kind. There were no magical moments. No montages of laughter or perfectly timed sunshine. Healing looked more like Jungkook waking up before dawn, then going back to bed. Him eating half a meal instead of skipping all of it. Hoseok bringing coffee and sitting silently with him, neither saying a word. Taeyoon leaving Polaroids on his desk, pictures of skies, dogs, his own sleepy face with the caption, still here. Waiting to IT was slow, messy, but it was real. A studio visit. Unplanned one rainy evening, Jungkook returned to the studio. No comidas. No expectations. The couch was still there. His drawers still empty. But the wall? It had changed. The others had added sticky notes all across it. Every color, every corner. Messages like, you matter more than the music. We're not 7 without you. Even Supermen get to rest. Sorry we didn't see the storm in your eyes. He read each one. Every line felt like a thread pulling him back to the surface. They had always trained to move in sync. Steps, notes, breaths. But grief wasn't choreographed, and guilt didn't follow tempo. Even as Jungkook began to open up, the others were unraveling in silence. Jin stopped making jokes. Hoseok couldn't sleep. Jimin cried his car more than once. Namjoon started rewriting lyrics that once felt untouchable. Taeyoon would stare at his phone at 3 a.m., fingers hovering over Jungkook's contact, typing and deleting the same message. Are you okay today? They thought helping him heal would bring them closer. Instead, they were drowning in their own regrets. One afternoon. A group confrontation had started with a casual practice session. Just stretching, light vocals, nothing official. But the air was wrong, heavy, unspoken. Let's just say it. Namjoon finally snapped, voice sharp. We're scared. Everyone froze. Scared he's still not okay? Jimin whispered. Scared we'll miss it again, said Hoseok. Scared we already did, added Jin. Then came silence. Jungkook stood in the middle of them, eyes wide. Hyungs, I didn't want this. We didn't see you. Taeyoon said, pain in every word. That's on us. No, Jungkook said. I stopped letting you. I stopped asking to be seen. Rain tapped gently against the studio windows. The world outside was gray, muted, but inside it was warm. Jungkook sat alone in the vocal booth, hood drawn over his head like armor. The mic hung in front of him, untouched, a silent witness to the storm that had lived in his chest for months. The booth still smelled like old coffee, foam panels, and something faintly comforting. Maybe Jin's cologne, maybe Hoseok's shampoo. Something that said, you're not alone anymore, that he hadn't pressed record since the night they found his letter. He'd come here plenty of times, sat, stared, even scribbled in his journal. But the idea of singing again, of offering his voice to a world that had nearly taken everything from him, felt too raw, too dangerous. But today was different. The others were outside the glass. Not watching him, not waiting, just there. Namjoon met his gaze through the booth's window, eyes calm. He gave the smallest nod. No words, no pressure, only presence. Jungkook exhaled, let the breath sit in his chest a second longer than usual. Then, slowly, he reached forward and pressed record. The sound of the system clicking on felt louder than Thunderpoint 2 weeks earlier. It hadn't felt like this. Healing had come in strange, uneven rhythms. Some mornings, Jungkook felt lighter. Others, he couldn't get out of bed. There were days where ramen tasted like comfort, and others where it felt like cardboard in his mouth. There was no dramatic breakthrough, no montage of laughter and hugs. Just small things. Taeyong silently playing guitar in the corner of his room. Jimin leaving short notes on sticky paper that read Makin Woi or Lo Napas Hariani. Jean knocking once on his door each night, not waiting for a response. Hoseok dropping off coffee and never asking how he was. There was no performance in their kindness now. Only sincerity. Only time. The turning point came without warning. They were all at the dorm, sprawled in the living room, watching an old episode of a show they barely remembered filming. Jungkook was laughing for the first time in weeks. Genuinely laughing, nose scrunching, shoulders shaking. The others were grinning too, quietly watching him more than the screen. Then Hoseok turned to him, serious but soft, and asked, "Do you want to come back?" Jungkook's smile faded. "Come back. To us. To music. To whatever part of it still belongs to you," Hoseok said. "Not because we need you to. Because maybe you want to." Jungkook didn't answer right away. His eyes drifted to the floor. "I don't know who I am when I'm not Jungkook from BTS." Namjoon leaned forward, voice steady. "Then let's figure out together. No kameras. No fans. No company. Just us." That night, Jungkook didn't sleep. He didn't cry either. He just sat by his window, watching the sky lighten, and whispered, "I miss singing." The next day, he showed up at the studio. Not to record. Not yet. Just to sit. Just to feel the space that had once been his whole world. He ran his fingers across the keyboard. Open old files. Read lyrics he'd once hidden between drafts. For the first time, he didn't feel pressure. Just presence. And now, in the booth with 6 of them standing silently outside, he sang that in OFX. No layers. Just him. Just raw words that trembled when they left his lips. "I used to sing to prove something," he murmured, voice thin, but certain. "Now I sing to survive." He didn't aim to impress. He wasn't looking for praise. He just needed to say it out loud. That he was still here. Still breathing. Still trying. When he finished, no one clapped. That it didn't need to. Jean stood first, walked to the booth glass, and placed a hand gently against it. One by one, the others joined him, pressing their palms to the wall between them. Not out of habit, not out of show, just as a quiet promise. "We hear you now." That night, after the others had gone home, Jungkook stayed behind. He walked to the drawer, the same one where they'd once found the letter that nearly shattered them, and opened it slowly. The old letter was gone. Jean had burned it a week ago, without telling anyone. Said it didn't deserve to survive the healing. In its place, Jungkook slipped in a new note. For words, nothing more. "Thank you for staying." He folded it once, gently, closed the drawer, then left the studio door open behind him, letting the light follow. The sky over Seoul was clear the morning Jungkook came back for real. Not just to sit in the studio or sing a few lines in private, but to rejoin the world, the fans, the stage, the terrifying weight of being seen again. He stood in the dressing room, staring into the mirror. The makeup artist had stepped out, sensing he needed a moment alone. His face was bare. No concealer under his eyes, no shimmer on his cheekbones. Just him. Just John Jungkook. 20-something, terrified, and still putting himself back together. Behind him, the door creaked open. Namjoon stepped in. "You okay?" Jungkook looked at his reflection. "Ask me again after the first song." Namjoon chuckled, but his eyes stayed serious. "We're not here to make it perfect. We're here to make it true." Jungkook turned, finally meeting his leader's gaze. "And if I mess up, then we mess up together." The lights went down. The stage called. The fans, those same millions who had once screamed for their golden magne, were waiting. Not just for the choreography or the vocals, but to see if he still belonged on that stage. And the truth was, Jungkook didn't know, but he walked onto it anyway. The music began, soft at first, like a heartbeat. The crowd screamed, but even their joy seemed gentler now, like they knew. Like they had read the headlines, watched the silences, felt the absence that he didn't look at them. Not yet that he looked left. Taeyong met his eyes, gave a small wink, right? Jimin, already tearing up. Hosiak bouncing in place like a human sunbeam. Jin, smiling softly, mouthing, "You got this." And Namjoon, solid as a mountain, standing behind him. Not pushing, not leading, supporting. The beat dropped, and Jungkook sang. His voice cracked in the second verse. His footwork faltered during the chorus. But no one cared. Not the fans. Not the members. Not even him. Because for the first time in his career, he wasn't performing to meet expectations. He was performing to express existence that he was here. After the final note, the lights faded to blue. The members lined up, breathless, sweaty. Jungkook stood at the center, blinking at the sea of light sticks swaying in the dark. And then he spoke, no script, no rehearsed ending, just him. There was a time I thought I'd never stand here again. That maybe I didn't deserve to. That if I disappeared, the world would keep spinning and none of this would matter. The arena went still. But the truth is, I didn't need the world to stop. I just needed someone to see me when I wasn't shining. And my brothers, they saw me. Late. But they did. He turned to them. Jimin was already crying. Hosiak wiped his eyes. Taeyong reached out, gripped his shoulder tight. Jungkook turned back to the crowd. And now, I want you to know something. I'm still learning how to be okay. I might leave again, someday. Not to vanish, just to breathe. But when I do, he paused. The room held its breath. Will you still find me? The crowd answered not with words, but with a roar so loud it shook the floor. 1,000 yes wrapped in light. Backstage, the atmosphere was electric. Staff cried. Managers hugged. The stylists held hands. It was more than a concert. It was a resurrection. Later that night, when the others were celebrating, Jungkook sat outside the venue alone for a few minutes. Hoodie up, cold can of soda in his hand. The stars were visible, rare in the city. He didn't cry, he just sat there, watching the sky, and whispered to no one, "I think I found myself again." Then came footsteps. Jimin first, plopping down beside him, no questions asked. Taeyong followed, then Jin, Hosiak, Namjoon. They didn't need words, they just sat there, backs against concrete, looking up at the sky like it was a blank page, and no longer 7 idols. Just 7 people who had almost lost each other, and had chosen, with everything left in them, to stay. Not because the world demanded it, but because they now knew no stage was worth standing on if even one of them was missing.